Okay, so this is the I don't know how it's going to turn out, if this is the second or third episode, depending on if I delete the second episode, but this is Rob's yet to be named podcast. And this is my guest for tonight, an old friend of mine, Charles Olsen. We met. Actually, I'll let Charles introduce himself, and I'll let him explain like what he remembers about how we met, and we'll go into the interview. So take it from here, Charles.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm Charlie Olsen, been a friend of Rob's for over 20 years. And I met Rob when we were working at the movie theater together in Vancouver, Washington. We were just kind of in our late teens, early 20s at that point, I believe. And yeah, it was an interesting time just because both of us were I think we were either seniors in high school or just out of high school. And we were both just kind of feeling the waters when it came to, getting together with people and, interacting with people other than groups that we knew in high school, I guess. So it was kind of a breaking out at that point. And I remember we were working as ushers at the time. And I had been working at the theater, I think for, I don't know, just about a year or so, maybe less. And I got to meet Rob one day when we were cleaning an auditorium together. And Rob actually, he just looked mad all the time. And I wasn't really sure why, but I just kind of left him alone. I let him do his thing. I wasn't someone that would really approach people all that much. But he actually came up to me and asked me, if I liked watching football and watch sports. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so we kind of rolled into that and eventually became the best of friends over the years. It's been really great.
It's funny because I get that for anybody who worked with me, like especially the early phases at the theater, I've gotten that where I look pissed all the time, that I looked really I looked aggressive. I think I was just so, I was, when I first worked there, it was before I kind of developed, I think, some of my wasn't that good socially, I guess. And so I think that was very early on, and I kept to myself, and I think I was in my own head with a lot of stuff. But that's funny you remember that, because I haven't heard that.
In hindsight, I think it was just more that you were really focused. I think that you did a really great job. Everything that you did, you put everything into, especially when it came to work and working as a team. I think that you were a really great, team leader in that way as well. Just focused and ready to tackle any challenge that came our way.
Yeah, I remember starting there, and I remember Derek was one of the usher leads, and I thought Scott was the other one. But Scott says no way, but I swear those were the two usher leads. But it might have been Derek and you, but I don't remember.
Scott might have been a fill-in, I think, at some point for a little while. But from what I remember, as far as lead ushers, I remember you, me, Gabe, and either Derek or Scott, depending on who was there at the time, I guess.
Well, from what I remember is when Derek got his promotion to projection, that I think it was me and you became the two usher leads. I don't think Gabe or Derek were actual leads, but they were kind of like considered, people that were better workers. But I think it was me and you that were, made the lead after Derek got promoted and Scott got fired.
I think that sounds about right. Yeah.
But so shit, you started there. I started there in December of 2000, and it was like I want to say I graduated this summer, but I don't think I graduated on time. Like I was doing like one summer class or something. So I graduated during the summer, and that was my first job out of high school. So I think you worked there your senior year some.
Yeah, I got a summer job there. I think it was in '99. And it was right before senior year. So that sounds about right.
And then you quit there in 2002, correct?
Yeah, October 2002.
It's like a month after I quit the first time. Or I guess that was the second time I quit. Because I quit twice in 2002, and then I quit in 2004. Um, Weird that I worked there 3 different times. But what was probably your like favorite memory there?
Oh my God, how can you pick one? There's just so much history there. You know, for anybody that's worked at a place, you know, with a group of people that you've really gotten along with, you know, you can't just pinpoint one. I think, yeah, there's so many, but I guess if I had to pick like maybe a point in time, I mean, I'd probably have to say my most fondest memory would have to have been, I think, uh, probably summer of 2000. Actually, no, make that 2001. Yeah, summer 2001. Probably it was just because we had such a really great group at night during the weekends, and you know, especially during the summertime, it was just a jam-packed place. I mean, if you everybody went to the movie theater in Vancouver back in those days. I mean, date nights were there. We were the place to be. We were the biggest theater in the metro area, 16 auditoriums, thousands of people coming through. The biggest, you know, movies to come out of Hollywood was there. And so, you know, you wanted to be seen, even like, you know, as a young, you know, 18, 17-year-old, you went to the movie theater. You know, it wasn't just a place to see movies and go on dates. It was a place to be seen as well, at least in my mind, from what I saw. So I'd say the most fondest would be around that time, just because of the people that worked there, especially. And working with them, it didn't even seem like work. It was really just, you know, time with friends. It was just hanging out. But I mean, we worked hard. Don't get me wrong. A lot of hard work, a lot of people to deal with. But at the end of the day, when you're with the right people, it's just a lot of fun. It was just a lot of great memories back then.
Yeah, I have. I mean, you've talked about it before, but it's like I worked there the summer 2001, 2002, 2003, and then I worked summer 2004 at a movie theater in Sacramento. And summer 2001 was clearly my favorite summer out of all those. But yeah, it was a unique group. I've told people that it's kind of like a combination of nerds, because none of us at the time were like drinkers, really. None of us were like, it was just an interesting group. It was, you know, a bunch of kids going to Sherry's, and you know, that was what we did instead of drink. And we drank a lot of coffee and had milkshakes. And um, you know, I got in the habit of hiking around at night. And I think me and you started hiking around at night later on. I think you didn't hike with me early on, did you?
No, you know, we did hike a few times. I remember going to, I think it was Lacamas Lake a couple times with you to just, you know, check out the trail that goes along the lake itself. And yeah, those were pretty cool times, you know, just kind of hanging out, whatever.
Do you remember when me and you went out there at like 1 in the morning? We heard a chainsaw, and we turned around and walked back.
Yeah, you know, that was probably that we did, just because, you know, the deeper you're going that in that trail, the, you know, the darker it gets. So yeah, I think that it's probably best that we did leave that time.
Because we never had a flashlight. That's what I remember, is hardly ever have a flashlight. We were just walking, and we were like, yeah, you know, moonlight or whatever light
Yeah.
from stars. And then I was like, dude, Chuck, what is that? And you were like, oh, it sounds like a chainsaw. And I was like, dude, that's what it sounds like to me. And I go, why is there a chainsaw at 1 in the morning? Like, why is this? And then we were like, okay, this is getting a little too weird. So we turned around.
We were the early 20s, I am invincible young kids, you know. It's where nothing can happen to you. But at the same time, we also had at least, you know, enough smarts to be like, yeah, we heard that, time to go.
No, yeah, you're right on that. It's because I remember going down there, and I was rarely afraid. I just, like, for some reason, like 19, 20, 21-year-old me just was not that afraid. I still can't believe I walked, you know, one night I was upset, and I walked from, you know, my parents' house um, over by where that QFC was on 162nd,
Yeah.
all the way down on that back road all along Lackamas and came out. Was it a steak burger out there? Not steak burger, but Top Burger.
Top Burger. Yeah,
I
yeah.
came out past there. And
Wow.
this was all on foot before I had a cell phone, had no flashlight, and I remember I was wearing all I had was like rip shorts and a Sonics shirt.
Jeez.
And I was mad. I left at 1 a.m. I actually tried to hike the trail. I walked all the way out there to the trail, tried hiking it, but it was so dark. I kept hearing what sounded like hooves, like on the road, like in front of me, but I couldn't see anything. And I was like, I'm sure that's just a deer, but I kept thinking of the game Doom. And like, I was like, okay, I don't know. I should just keep walking down. And a couple cars honked at me because there's no real side area to walk on. So I was like walking in the road when I was walking down that whole path before they had the street lights and stuff. And looking back on it, I remember it was 10 miles. It was over 10 miles I walked.
I was gonna say that's a long ways from where your parents' house was all the way to Top Burger.
Well, I went past Top Burger and I went to that gas station. There was a payphone, and I called my parents from that payphone.
Wow.
And it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I go, yeah, I'm out here at blah blah blah. Can you guys come pick me up? And they were like, how'd you get out there? Your car's here. And I was like, I walked. It's weird because before you had a cell phone, you there was a certain amount of like where you weren't really afraid. You know what I'm saying? Like you weren't really like now when you don't have a cell phone, you're like you feel cut off. But back then I didn't feel cut off. I just felt like, yeah, this is how it is.
Yeah, no, you feel like you have like you're missing a piece of you, and that's that communication piece, which nowadays is just a part of everybody. And it's still kind of surreal to me to think about like not having that back then, but we did.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing like the internet. Like every time we get something that makes it easier for us, we become more dependent on it. And yeah, it's like now it's like if I'm not online for a few days, I'm like, oh, I gotta check my email. I feel like there's all this stuff that's probably going on.
Yeah, it could be missing somebody from somebody, right?
Yeah. So like what would be so your favorite memory would be the summer of 2001?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I think
probably
that's when Shrek came out, right?
Shrek was spring.
Spring. Well, so then it bleeded into the summer. And yeah, I would have to definitely say that was by far the best time.
I can't think of Shrek without thinking of Sean Ketchum getting hurt in the pre-screening. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
What did he try to do? Like hop a row and got his leg caught in the seat and then fell down and like broke his leg or something. I remember being like, he was like Mr. Glass from Unbreakable.
Yeah, I could say that with a certainty, definitely.
But yeah, that was a fun summer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of that was when Tyler did the schedule, and I told him I just wanted Chuck, Gabe, and Garrick, and that's all we need most of the time. Trying to think, what's your worst memory from the theater?
Can I share two that are brief?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you the first one. And this is one I've been thinking about for a while since you started to do these episodes. And this is something I wanted to share. I think I told you this before, but I wanted to at least say it to you again because of just how much I appreciate you. Because it had been almost a year since I had to work concessions. And I was told that in the morning I had to work concessions. And so that night, honest to God, I had nightmares about it. I honestly had nightmares about just being flooded with people and not knowing how to work the register and doing all this stuff that everybody else just went day to day, no problem doing. But to me, it was a nightmare. It was like a horrific idea of just being behind that bar. But then, so I come in that day and lo and behold, you're back there. You're all alone. You're cleaning up. You're ready to get the day started. I'm just like, wait a second. I'm going to be working with Rob back here. I'm not going to be like with like a couple people that aren't going to help me at all. Oh my God, this is fantastic. So a nightmare actually turned into actually a really fun day. So it really worked out for the better.
I do remember that. And I remember people telling me that like if I was working the same position as them, they always felt like a little bit better because I was like, first off, I was like really protective of people. Like if there was like rowdy customers or something, But secondly, I usually just said the stupidest jokes and just would like that it would just keep whatever we were doing somewhat entertaining. You know,
100%.
dude, I remember. Do you remember the story where they were trying to put us all back there, and it was like retraining or something, and you had got stuck down there. I think this was a different time, but it was like the same sort of situation, and you had got stuck back there, and you were like not happy about it, and then Garrett got stuck back there, and Sam was management, and Sam said, "You're mine," like to Garrett, like your ass is mine today, like because they didn't get along, and Sam would go after him or whatever. And then it
Yeah.
was my turn for retraining. And I told Sam, I go, "Hey buddy, it's me and you all night. I'm so excited." And he was like, "No, no, no." He goes, "No, you're not, I'm not." He refused to give me a till. I was like, "Buddy," I go, how are we gonna have a fun time if I'm not working a till? I'm ready to work really hard. I'm excited." And he's like, "No, you're not, you're not." And then he was scrambling around, and the other, concessionists were like, "Give him a till." And Sam's like, "No, I'm gonna send him home early." And I was like, "I don't want to go home early. I want to work hard." And like,
You were Sam Sims' night terror. Like you weren't a nightmare. You were a night terror because his eyes were open and you were there, and you terrorized this guy for good reason too. By the way, it wasn't just because whatever. No, Sam was a awful manager. I mean, a nice guy outside of work, but damn, this guy just was not management material.
I liked him when I first met him, and it wasn't until I clashed with him when I didn't like how he treated like some of the employees. I thought he was a
Yes.
bully to some of the employees, and I thought that like he'd kind of been a jerk to a few people like I really care about and liked, and I decided, you know what, I gave it back to him, and I think my original thought process at that job was I was going to quit after 6 months and go get a job at Toys R Us. This is the you know the high level career path I was looking at, and once I realized I was going to stay there longer, I kind of had this like, well, screw it, I'm just gonna not care if I lose the job. So I cared. I wanted the work to get done. I wanted to make sure things were done right. But in terms of like, if I was going to have a problem with the job, I would take up that role of confronting a manager or whatever and throwing it back at them. And so many of them were pulling so much ridiculous crap that they wouldn't rat me out because they knew I had more dirt on them than whatever they thought they could come up with me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
it's almost like a goddamn like a teen movie or something. There's so much weird shit that happened there, like people selling drugs, people doing, like, I remember hearing stories about people sleeping with people for money.
Yeah. There
Or-
was a lot of group stuff going on like that, which was just crazy to me at that age. I'm just like, holy crap, like these guys are really going after it with like these like drunken sex parties. I mean, even if they weren't true or whatever, but it just was weird.
and that's what made it so funny about the rest of us, like the group me and you kind of hung out with, because like I said, it was just a bunch of fucking nerds. It was a bunch
Yeah.
of like some of the goofiest conversations I could think of. Yeah. And you were going to school at that time, right? You were in college. And
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I went right into community college. It was I after the day of graduation, it was like a week after that. I had like a week of summer, and then I went right into college. And because I really wanted to get through it, I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to start my life. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to, do the things I wanted to do. I didn't want to stay in school for a long time, so I wanted to transition quickly, and which I did. And so I balanced my classes with work, and so it worked out pretty well because I mean, college is great with you can just you can decide whether you want to go at night or in the morning or afternoon. Didn't matter. You didn't have like a set thing like you do in other schools. So it worked out really well to where I could still work at night and be with my friends and work at a decent place and still get through school. And yeah, it was challenging just because I was constantly doing something. I was studying, I was in class, I was at work. Not a whole lot of time to socialize. So work was really kind of my socializing arena, I guess. I didn't really do anything else other than that. So, and that was, yeah, all through the time I was in at the theater.
Yeah, like I remember you taking those breaks for school and then coming back. And did Sam work there the same time as you, or did he come later,
So,
or before?
you talking about Sam Sims or my brother Sam?
Oh, your brother Sam.
So I think my brother, I don't remember if he was still in high school or not when he started working there. I want to say that he started there, I think in 2001, spring of 2001, I think. Do you remember if he was there before or after you? He had to have been after.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him working there because I remember there was kind of different people that would start working there in the spring, and most of them I remembered when they first started, but then there was some that like I assume just kind of came back because certain ones were not engaged. Like there was certain employees that would start and were never really engaged, so I never got a chance to really find out how new they were. Does that make sense?
No, they were the total dropouts in my mind. I always cataloged them as dropouts where they would be there less than 3 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
I count on my hand like how many there were. There weren't that many, but there were a few. So
I still remember the 6 people hired when I was hired.
oh yeah.
Who were you hired with? Anybody I would have, or you?
Actually, I was hired solo. I was a solo hire. I was trained by a couple of guys I went to high school with who had already gotten a job there a few months prior to me working there. And it was the day I was hired and got trained was when the first Star Wars was out. The second Austin Powers movie had just come out, and like 2 other blockbusters. And so it was just a nightmare of a weekend. And I'm just like, is it always like this? And they're just like fucking with me. They're just like, yeah, no, every day is like this. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
It was similar to me. My opening weekend, I believe, was like December, I want to say December 15th of 2000. And it was The Grinch. And it was sellout shows of The Grinch.
Yeah.
I
I remember Castaway came out that same year too, right?
A couple weeks later was Castaway, Snatch, the one about what was it? JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can't think of what it's called. Yeah, there were several of them that came out all around there that the first movie I watched there was Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's the one I used my first free pass to get in. And God, I can't believe I remember that. I think it's like, crap, dude, I saw so many movies there.
I think mine was I took a friend to see Gladiator when it came out in 2000, the summer 2000.
Summer 2000?
Yeah, that was my first movie that I got to use a free ticket, and I actually took a friend, and yeah, we saw that.
You said you worked there for the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, Phantom Menace I think came out spring of 99.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was still in theaters when I got the job in the summer. So it bled into the summer movies.
Okay.
And it was still making a ton of money at the time. I mean, there was
sure.
all that.
I think I saw it 4 times in the theater.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was before I worked there. Yeah, dude, it was so many goofy memories there. Did you ever have any conflicts with customers?
Yeah, I did. I remember there was one time, and I think you might have been there at the time. A lady had a little kid with her. It might have been her son. It might have been someone she was babysitting, but she was kind of an older lady. She came down the hallway and was like whistling and trying to get our attention like we were dogs. It was me and a few other ushers down the hallway. And so finally we turn around and I'm just like, yeah, yes, ma'am. What did you need? She's like, I need you to take my son into the bathroom and lift him up so he can wash his hands. I'm like, ma'am, you want me to handle your son by lifting him up to wash his hands? She's like, yeah, is there a problem with that? I'm like, there's a huge problem with that. I don't feel comfortable holding your child to have his hands washed. You're more than welcome to take him into the ladies' restroom and have him wash his hands in there. And she got so irate and just belittled all of us and just was just a complete hag about the whole thing. It was really embarrassing on both ends.
I remember that story, but I don't know if I was there. Like, I remember the story for that though.
I just couldn't believe what I was being asked to do. I'm just like, wow, no, I'm good. That's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I remember. Did you remember I used to get on the radio and always say Charlie's doing this or Charlie's doing that?
Yeah,
like,
I remember
mocking like Vietnam movies.
Yeah, that was fun.
We got Charlie letting off a bomb in the bathroom. We got Charlie doing this. Charlie's here, and Theo would come and find me and tell me to quit doing that.
Yeah, I think he eventually caught on that it wasn't really me.
No, it was you, but I would just constantly saying Charlie. Like I didn't. I think I was the only person in the theater who called you Chuck.
Yeah, no, you did. You were the first one to start using that name, and then it caught on with a couple of others. And like I told everybody, I didn't care what I was called. I mean, so long as it wasn't, like a bad thing, like dumbass or something. I could care less what you call me. You want to call me Chuck, Charlie, Charles, whatever. So yeah.
One of my stories that from later on at the theater was, when you were dating Laura. Like, I would kind of troll Laura all the time and tell her that, like, about that. I go, yeah, I just want you to know there's been some issues. Like, your boyfriend, he keeps hitting on me, and it's really like making me uncomfortable. And I thought she knew, me being me, that I was just messing with her. Well, it was literally like 12 years later. I was hanging out with her. I hadn't seen her in a while. We were hanging out, and she brought up to me about those stories and the accuracy of those stories, and I was like, are you being serious, Laura? And she was like, yeah, I remember like being like really questioning like what was going on and stuff. And I was like, but no, I was messing with you. I was trying to get you to tell Charlie that I was saying that, to make Charlie upset with me, because I was just trying to mess with you guys. And she goes, I thought you were serious. I thought you were like,
I know, yeah. Laura and I would hang out on our days off together when we weren't working at the theater, and mostly, at nights, because that was the only time we had to see each other. And she would legitimately look at me and ask me, so Rob was saying this and that about you. Is that really going? I'm just like, what? No, of course not. He's just fucking with you.
That I remember that. You dated a few people there, but I remember that one time period around the winter, late 2001, early 2002. You and Laura were kind of a cute couple for a little bit there. You guys were like just super smiley and just super like.
We were very, very much in love. We were. We had the most amazing relationship together. It was really awesome. It was such a great time. And we got to do so much together. It was great. See so many things, experience so many things. And it kind of rolls into the second thing that really pissed me off about the movie theater. And that was the reason why I quit. There was a manager that worked there who was told by a customer that I was quote unquote making out with another employee at the doorpost. And the doorpost at the time was on the side of the concession stand. It wasn't in front where the box office was. And so this manager comes up to me and starts accusing me, and she's like, you really need to rein it in when it comes to this kissing stuff with your girlfriend. You guys need to act professional and all this stuff. I'm just like, whoa. Whatever this customer said is completely out of context. I gave Laura a hug and I might have kissed her on the cheek, but that was it. It wasn't something that was just outrageous or anything like this person is saying. And I wasn't believed. This manager did not believe me. She just turned around, stormed off, just like, you need to just rein it in. She just, turned around, walked away. And at that moment, I'm just like, you know what? If I don't have the trust of management here, even if it's just one of the managers, I can't be here. I'm done, because this is going to spread throughout the other managers and leadership team. And I don't want to have my name tarnished like that because of some idiot customer that got, her word over mine for some reason. So I was just like, you know what? Okay, I'm done. I'm out of here. And I talked to Garrick about it for a while, our mutual friend. And he's just like, dude, you got to get the fuck out of here anyway. This place is going downhill. You got to go. It's not like how it was.
I think Garrick would have said that at any point in history.
He would have. And because he always loved to instigate controversy. He always loved to instigate chaos. But to me, I think there was that part, but then I think there was a very small fraction of him being very much legit. And so I took his advice and I was just like, all right. And it was about a week later that I went up to Jim and I was just like, dude, I quit. I'm out of here. And he's like, really? I was just about to give you a raise. And I'm just like, yeah, bullshit, you were. Are you kidding? I've been here 3 years. You give me 10 cents. That's about it.
I just thought of it. You know who Garrett kind of reminded me of at the movie theater?
Who's that?
Worm Tongue. Do you see it a little bit?
Yeah, if Worm Tongue cursed more and pretended like he was gay and was asking for 80-year-old ladies' phone numbers and hitting on them. And yeah, I could see him being Worm Tongue, sure.
He was such a good worker, but he could not reel it in enough to he had to start something or had to get say something offensive. He didn't like anybody when he started there.
No.
And I remember him trying to boss me around one of his first days. He was like, you're not going to help me. You're just going to stand at the bottom and be lazy and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, actually, management told me I have to wait until the customers are out before I get up and do that. I go, but should I listen to you or management? Because I didn't know they said that. And he came down and then he changed his demeanor. So he realized that, I was, doing it by how we're actually supposed to do it.
Well, he's such a funny guy because we went to high school together, but I didn't know him until I was a senior. He was a junior at the time. I can't remember if he had always gone to Camas, but I guess I never really saw him before then. When I shared a class with him. I think it was I don't even remember what it was, but anyway, we shared a class and we barely talked. We just kind of knew that of each other's existence. So then he gets into the movie theater, whatever year that was. And he instantly kind of gravitates towards me and just wants to be my friend because I think he realized that he knew that I was a good guy and he knew that I was going to treat him well and he knew that I was going to treat him fairly. And so he just wanted to befriend me so that he'd have at least that kind of an ally with him. No matter what he did and whatever pranks he wanted to do, he knew that I could be there for him. You know what I mean?
I think he had a respect for people that worked hard.
Yeah.
He had a really good work ethic.
Absolutely.
Despite him hitting on old ladies and all the other stuff.
I think he did that for our sakes, just to have a good time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude. There's so many bizarre stuff with him and customers. And I had some incidents with customers as well. I forget about that part of it. I came into that job so nervous of interactions with people. I was so nervous in concessions. I was so I'd run my tail off. And by the time, it was towards the end of me working there, I was so relaxed on any customer interaction. I remember just being I would purposely downsell. I remember, what was it, the candy combo thing where it was they had the sign up,
yeah.
or it was if we don't ask you about our candy combo, you get a free whatever. And they go, you didn't ask me. And I go, yeah, I know I didn't ask you. I go, that's because I respect customers and I think you're an intelligent person and you deserve for somebody to respect your intelligence and they want to pester you and stuff. I go, but if you want to get me in trouble, you're more than welcome to. No, no, I don't want to get you in trouble. And no, I mean, none of them ratted on me.
Those candy combos, man, I just can't get over those. They pushed us to make sure every customer knew about them so much. It made me sick to even ask every time. I was just like, I'm just so over it. People can make the decision themselves.
Yeah, I remember putting ice in a bag once because I was so nervous when I was making somebody like getting their food and drinks. I was like, and then I put ice in a bag, and then I stopped and looked at it, and I go, and then I just kind of, they laughed. But it definitely, like having that job definitely helped me, kind of develop less anxiety about social interaction. I think my later jobs did it even more, working in healthcare, selling cars for a year, stuff like that.
From my perspective, it really seemed like all of us at that time, because of how old we were at the time, each one of us gained something from that experience, whether it was, overcoming social anxiety, whether it was, developing friendships, whether it was developing good work habits, or, name it. And somebody was able to gain something from it if they really were present there, rather than just thinking, oh, this is a bullshit job, I'm going to do the bare minimum. Like I can think of a few people, I won't name names, but yeah, it was really cool to see people evolve and develop as we progress through that phase.
No, I see that. I agree with that. I'd kind of, another thing with it is I felt like, and maybe you felt like this too, but as somebody who was trying to write a lot when I was a teenager, a lot of the stuff I was focused on when I was writing was, social issues, activism, like human rights stuff. And it wasn't like super happy topics. And I remember when I worked at the movie theater, like there was something about the storytelling part of it, like being in the auditoriums for like bits and pieces, and like hearing theme music and seeing scenes and seeing acting and all this, that I remember I started kind of getting a weird vibe about like just storytelling within, movies, and just the whole combination of all of it, soundtracks, like the lighting of the auditoriums, everything it started to feel like, in a way, I was in the movie. And then it turned into like all the characters I was working with were like actors in the movie. And I don't know, everything kind of got magnified. And I remember like cleaning, I think we were playing ET, and it was the theme music for ET at the very end, the credit scene, and I was the only one in the auditorium cleaning, and I was like standing on top of the seats and like just walking around on the armrests, and I was doing all this stuff, like I was orchestrating the ET soundtrack at the credit scene. And
nice.
But my emotions were so high, like I felt like it was like I found this little secret, like this little special thing that was like, and it was kind of like belief, like from being a child and stuff. It was like I started to like kind of like believe in the power of storytelling again, and how it can change your moods, and it pushed me in a different way with what I was doing music wise. And I mean, it had an impact on you with becoming a writer, right?
100%. In fact, the only time before I started writing my first book was the first experience that I had that was positive with writing was I was a freshman, and our English teacher told us to just get out a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and we did. And he goes, "Now, write whatever's in your head." And this blew my mind. I was never asked to do like that kind of assignment before, ever. And he's just like, it could be anything from an entire story to, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say the whole time, just write something down. And so I did. I just let my mind open up, and it was the seed that would start to grow after, probably when I think I started writing my first book in 2001. And yeah, the movie theater kind of cultivated the idea of writing, just because of, yeah, the characters that I got to see in the movies themselves, but also just the personalities that I got to work with and the people that I got to develop relationships with. They're so profound and so interesting that I thought, well, on top of others that I've known in my life that I thought were really cool people that I got to, know and befriend, it just kind of all came together at one point at that moment to where I was able to start writing stories and really enjoying it, not just feeling like it's an assignment for school, but rather something that belongs to me. That's something that I came up with on my own that, was more than just, like I said, an assignment from a teacher.
Yeah, that makes sense. So was there any specific like movies or anything that like kind of triggered your interest in
Yeah,
or books you read or anything that like
sure. So I think that the trigger was, as corny and as stupid as it might sound, was when Harry Potter came out. I liked the idea of the wizarding world, right? So just this world outside of reality, or what we consider reality, and to be able to step into that for a moment and be wrapped up in all that's involved with that, and then come back out of it into normal reality again, like at the end of the movie when he has to go home for the summer. I thought, wow, that I was really interested with that. And so when the Lord of the Rings came out the next year, or that, what was it? Yeah, was that the December of that year?
it was a month later.
Yeah, I didn't see it yet, but when I eventually did, it just opened everything. It opened all the doors in my mind, and it cultivated everything that I have still, continue to write today. And that is fantasy medieval fiction. It's just what I absolutely love to do. And those were really kind of the two movies that kind of pushed me to do it. It wasn't the catalyst, but rather it was the push. The catalyst was definitely the assignment that I was given when I was a freshman in high school.
you, you know I have like memories of like being a kid and like having like cousins, like visiting cousins and stuff, and they'd have like on their walls they'd have like pictures of wizards and all this stuff like back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then when the 90s hit, I don't ever really remember seeing anything like that. It was like it just was, to me in my brain, it was fixated on the 80s. And then and that year in 2001, some of my friendships I made that at that time, the people kind of reminded me of like certain like flashbacks. Like I remember rewatching the Neverending Story summer 2001, and I started having these kind of fantasy flashbacks of my childhood. And then watching I watched Lord of the Rings on the pre-screening for it, and I was blown away, man. I remember like there was a combination of the movie plus the company at the time. And then when I got out of there, I remember like the moon was out and I was walking in the parking lot and I just had that theme music stuck in my head. And I felt like I just watched something that's going to change my life.
Right.
Like, yeah. And I just felt like, wow, things have changed. Things like I'm a different person after that movie. And then I watched Harry Potter with the same person I watched Lord of the Rings with, and it just added to it, like the theme music. I had no idea that it was John Williams that did the Harry Potter theme, and me and you talked about that, I think.
Yeah, Chris Columbus got John Williams to do the score. That's right. Yes.
And Yeah, I liked Harry Potter. You know, there's a couple other things at the time, but it just kind of all of a sudden I had this mindset in my head about like, fairies and elves and goblins and all this stuff. And yeah, it was really kind of cool to rediscover this stuff. As I think I just turned 20, and yeah, and then just even looking at the last 20 years, like look at how popular it became since then. Not just that, but Marvel, like Star Wars, everything is just blowing up to where like sci-fi and fantasy is just so much bigger than it used to be. It used to almost be like, felt like something that like, oh, only like bookworms or you know
Yeah, it was really kind of for just a very narrow audience, and now it's for everybody. I mean, everybody loves it. You know,
mm-hmm.
most everybody. I can't say everybody, but close to it.
What is probably, if you had to say like a favorite book or a favorite movie, both, like what would you probably say?
Favorite book? That's a good question. I've got a lot. What's the one that I keep coming back to all the time? I really enjoyed reading Beowulf. I read that one a lot. Um, I read the Book of Chaucer. It's a textbook that I actually got during my medieval history course in college. I read that from time to time, go back to it at least. And I want to name one other one. Oh, it's actually the movie that just came out, The Last Duel. So that's a really good book as well. I really enjoy reading that. And the movie that just came out is very close to being spot on to the story based around the event that happened. So yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it's good. I haven't never read the book, but I'll probably check out the movie. Let me think. What else? The questions I have. Um, what would you? Oh yeah. Like when you did get into your writing, um, what would you consider like a place that was very motivational for you? I think we both know what we're talking about, but I wanted to phrase it in a certain way.
Sure. Yeah, you and I have talked about this a lot. Places that inspire us, places that motivate us to continue our creativity. Mine has been, and I'm sure always will be, the neighborhood of Oak Brook, where I grew up. And I lived and grew up there from the age of 1 to 12, and I moved to Camas after that. But yeah, it's full of inspiration for me. The people that live there, the friends that I had there, the look of the place, everything from the neighborhood park to the creek to the marsh to everything there. Just even when I was little, I imagined it being a kingdom. I imagined there being sections or countries of that area being, realms and kingdoms and stuff. And so, because my mom read to me all the time, and it just kind of stimulated my imagination. And so, being a bored kid, a lot of days I would just go outside and just see all the massive evergreen and oak trees everywhere, and the giant trees that people used to plant in front of their yards back in the 70s and 80s. And it just all kind of came together for me to think of worlds and kingdoms and the people that were in them too. And a lot of times people will ask me, well, so what do you base this character off of? And who did you think of when you made that character? Well, as you, I'm sure, can, attest to as well, it's not necessarily just one person. It's rather a culmination of like 3 or 4 people, sometimes 10, that just kind of mold into one character. Personality traits kind of just work for this certain character. Rare times I'll find myself basing a character off of one person, but 9 times out of 10, it's kind of the same type of character that I'm developing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hear you on that. um, being able to kind of, take personality traits when forming a character. Um, yeah, that's funny because I remember the story about you going back to Oak Brook to further motivate yourself. You moved back there as an adult to try to like motivate, inspire. Like, which book was it? Your second book?
Yeah, it was when I was starting to write my second book. My first one was called The Portal Spell, and that was really just an idea I came up with when I was out in the ocean fishing with my grandpa. And then that was really kind of the first ever story I wrote. It was like 124 pages long. And then my second book was The Legends of Evergreen, and that uh, got me to, when I moved out of my parents' house, I had to decide where to live. And I thought, well, what better place to get inspiration from than my old neighborhood? And they had an apartment complex still there that had been there since the 70s. And so I knew about them. And so I lived there for 4 years, 4 or 5. And yeah, it was an amazing experience coming back and just kind of being there again, and walking the same trails in the park, and just kind of being in that environment once again. It was really, really special.
I always I think about this story of when you move back there and one of the neighbors, like an older lady, like liked you. Do you remember
Yeah.
the story? And like that, like her nephews or niece or something like that was like, oh, my aunt likes you, and you're like, oh, and then she like you're gonna go hang out with her or something, and you brought her chocolates and like flowers. Wasn't that correct? You told me you brought her like something like as if you guys are gonna go on a date, and
Huh.
she acted really weird about it. And then you guys didn't
Oh.
hang out very long. And I remember like you were like, yeah, I don't know, it's really weird. I don't know why she was like that. And I go, I hate to say it, Chuck, but I think she just wanted to hook up with you, and it threw her off that you were like acting like a,
Like a
like a
decent human
chivalrous,
being.
like well, you were acting like you're kind of a classic character, man. You're kind of like, I've said this before about you when describing you to other people. I go, it's like Charlie himself came out of like one of those medieval stories. Like you have like a ability to be, very genuine and like honest, and just kind of like, I've never like sensed anything like negative from you. I've never sensed anything like, so for you to be kind of like bringing somebody chocolates and flowers, it sounds like a Charlie Olsen thing to do. Like,
Man, I don't even remember that. Gosh, I must have blocked it out because it was so horrible.
I remember you said it was really awkward because she seemed really thrown off that you brought those gifts for her, and then you were like, yeah, we just never hung out again. and I came over to that apartment a couple times. I remember coming over there one time on New Year's with Garrick.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I remember coming over there, and you were showing me was it your swords and all that stuff?
Yeah, in fact, I was so into Lord of the Rings back then. I moved out in 2005. Yeah, 2005, from my parents' house, and got the apartment with that summer. And I had three. I had Aragon's Ranger sword, Eowyn's sword, and then I also had Legolas's fighting knives. And on top of that, I had to get autographs of each one to put above each one of them as well. So
Of course, of course.
I still have them too. They're in my closet.
You got to pull those out, man. You got to find some place
Yeah.
to let them shine. Man, that was such a cool era. Like to have all those. I mean, we worked like basically like 3 different trilogies, correct? Like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Matrix.
Yeah. Gosh, you're right, because we were definitely involved in a lot of like beginning. Well, I know I wasn't there for the third Star Wars. I was there for the first and second one, and I was also there for the second and third Austin Powers, the first Shrek, uh, so on and so forth. But yeah, it's interesting how many we were involved in as far as having to work it.
Do you remember me and you seeing third Star Wars?
Um, did we see it together?
Yeah, we went downtown and we parked on the parking lot and the top of the parking garage. And I told stories about being on that parking garage a few years prior.
Yeah,
And,
I remember now.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
we went and got in line, and I think we bumped into, oh, I feel like we bumped into some people we knew in line. I can't remember who it was, but
Wasn't Garrick working as the manager there? And we got to
yes.
talk to him for a minute.
Yeah, we talked to him for a minute, and then yeah, Revenge of the Sith. I rarely ever went to that theater, so it was like, um, I wonder. I'm trying to remember.
Laura and I went to that one all the time, actually.
Oh, really? Was there
Yeah.
any reason for that? Was she like?
I think it was because it wasn't. I think it was just to kind of have a break from running into everybody at the other place.
Makes sense.
She also had some issues with. Well, I don't want to say for sure, but it seemed to me like she had like some issues with a couple of managers there. That it wasn't a bad thing. It's just like she just didn't want to deal with them or have to see them when we went. So the the city center one was nice to go to, just as kind of like an alternative to just go see the movie instead of like having it be a social hour first, because that's how it would turn out to be. No matter who you were, if you worked there, you'd run into at least 5 or 6 people that you either would want to talk to you or you'd want to talk to them, and it would just kind of blow up into this whole thing, which is fine. Other times you just want to go and see the movie and just leave, and that, I think that's why we kind of went there a lot of times too.
When I first worked at the theater in that summer of 2001, I totally used the theater as like even days off. I remember like I would bring my little brother or my little sister to see a movie, and then I would just kind of like it'd be a movie I already saw or a movie I wasn't interested in seeing, and then I would come out and just hang out with people I liked at work. It was like an excuse. I'd be like, oh well, I'm here for a movie, and some of them caught on to it, and they're like, oh, I'm here for a movie, huh? And you're just hanging out in the lobby the whole 2 hours. But yeah, and then later on it kind of shifted a little bit where it was like I think towards the end working there, I didn't really do that as much. I kind of just wanted to dodge people. I towards the end of working there, it was hard for me to stay in a movie the entire movie. Like I had a lot of weird anxieties about the movie theater towards the end.
Have you still haven't seen the Great Gatsby movie with Leo DiCaprio? And
No, I need to. I keep hearing. I think you recommended that to, didn't you?
yeah, no, I was the one, and you definitely need to see it, just because there's so many parts of it that you could relate to as far as your own life and the life that we also got to experience as a whole at the movie theater and everything else. But the one thing that kind of reminds me of that is when you say, you kind of wanted to be there less as far as, visiting people. It's the decline of the party, right? So you have the beginning, the peak, and the downhill, the bottom, and it's exactly how these gigantic parties would be at Gatsby's, and then sooner or later things just kind of went down south, and then the party's over, the lights turn out, it's just done, and now you have a new generation in there, and I think our last visit, I told you, it seems like they're just standing there. They're not interacting with each other. They're dead eyed. It's just not the same. It's not the lively party that it was back when we were there.
Yeah, man. When that first summer working there, like we both talked about, it was such a like, I don't know. I have so many good memories from that summer, and I remember the following summer, I was just a depressed wreck, and like, and then when I quit for a while and then came back summer 2003, it was completely different. It was like, I could make jokes and stuff, but it was like everything was like nostalgic. But then it was like trying to tap into something that you couldn't fully tap into. So instead, it was like almost like you were being haunted a little bit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and part of me liked it because I felt like it helped me with my art, but then part of me felt like I really felt like it being in limbo. Like I wasn't addressing things that bothered me, but I wasn't creating anything new either. It was like I didn't I couldn't live in the moment. I was just everything was like, you know, staring at old footprints. And
Yeah.
um but even today, me and you went there like what not too long ago. And every time we go back there once a year, every 6 months or something, we always tell a few stories about being there, and it's nostalgic. I've been away from it enough to where I can come back and have positive memories. And
Well, and no matter how much they've changed, I mean, the seating in the auditoriums have changed, the carpet has changed, the video games in the lobby have changed. They've got a new type of auditorium. I can't remember what they call it, but anyway, no matter what they do, there's so much still that's there that's familiar, that's still the same, that's still the original brick and mortar, or the outsides of the concession stand and restrooms and all that stuff it's still the same. And so you could still kind of still walk through, the paths that we had done, back then, and still kind of feel like you're still back there in a way for just a brief moment in time.
I like, when some of the times I go back there, I like look around and I kind of feel like I can still kind of see people from back then doing things at the end of the hall, or people doing things like in the lobby. And
Ghosts of the past, man.
and it's weird because like there has not been another job that has been able to get those emotions out of it. And I've often had the debate with people, if it's just the people at the time, is it the music I was listening to at the time, or is it my age at the time? Like what made some of that stuff so, like just sticking out more so than other stuff.
I could shed, if I could shed a little light on that, at least for myself. And I think that for me, it definitely was the age that I was at the time, just because you're breaking into adulthood. You're moving, people moving out of their parents' houses. You're finally done with school. For many people, it was the end of the road for school altogether. And really developing into the person you were going to be later on in life. And in that case, everything was just so new and so real and so, I don't know, fluid, that, you wanted to experience every moment of every day so intensely. Everything was very much intense.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It was, I didn't feel intense like any when I was in high school. I just felt really kind of like I had anxiety, but I didn't feel connected to anybody, and I didn't feel like my friendships were that big of a deal. I mean, nothing against my friends, but like I was so within myself in high school and doing my own thing that I just didn't really push having friends as much. And then once I got into or started working at the movie theater, it wasn't like that at the beginning, but it just started shifting a few months into it, hanging out with Tyler, hanging out with Troy,
Yeah.
getting this little group of nerds together to vent about life and stay up all night. And then just, every few months, a few more people would get hired on, and, and all of a sudden it was bigger group. You started coming out to those nights, and it fascinates me how much like I was saying, like none of us were drinkers really. And,
No.
when I quit and came back there, it was like a different group where a lot of them would have parties and all get drunk. And I mean, I got into that as well. But I don't know, there was something unique about that first group where it was like hiking around at night, going at we'd go to Harmony at night and play basketball. I don't know if you ever came out with us for that.
I never did. And I still regret to this day that I didn't at least go once. But I know that you guys usually would go out really late. Probably by the time the movie theater closed, you guys would go out and do that. I had to be in bed because I had to be in class the next morning.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. I'm trying to think anything else before we go to the next topic. So how many books have you written now?
Currently I've written, let me see, one, three novels, and then I've also written and illustrated about 5 or 6 children's picture books.
Picture books. Do I have the three novels? I have. I lost my copy of the Portal spell, like when I moved. I don't know where the hell it went. But
Oh,
I
that's
have
okay.
the Hero's Tale, the Legends of Evergreen, and Legends of Evergreen, the Frog King. Are those the novels?
Yes, actually, I forgot about the Hero's Tale, but yeah, so I guess that'd be 4 that I've completed.
Like, oh, I forgot about this book that I probably put.
I know. Well, you know what the Hero's Tale is about? It's really, that was, without me even knowing it, but I guess subconsciously, it was to be able to write the Legends of Evergreen series, which I've written the main book and then the spinoff book, The Frog King, and then I'm also working on one. I'm working on two more that are going to be in that series.
Didn't you have a book called like The Princess Song or something like that?
The Princess's Song. So that story I wrote with the idea of having it be something completely different from what I've done before. And it was based off of a relationship that I was in prior to her inevitable death from an accident that happened in 2007. Yeah, I was with her for about a year and a half, and she was out on her 21st birthday. It was like the night before. It was like midnight. Her friend wanted to take her out to a club, and she didn't want to at the time, but she went anyway. And she told me to make sure to call her at midnight or so. And I did, and I got to at least say, hi and whatever before it happened. But yeah, a drunk driver crashed into her and her friend that night, and both were killed instantly, unfortunately, very unfortunately. And what spurred me to do it, though, was I wrote the book with the idea of having kind of this living memory of her kind of move on and maybe possibly get published. But I was just so gone in my head with everything that had happened. I was just so lost and confused and thinking that this was going to be a great story to put out there. I took it to a writers conference and basically was told that it needed a lot of work, that this and that. And I was just like, yeah, no, I get it. And so it just kind of turned into a project that I basically gave to her mom as a gift. And she absolutely adored it and loved it and thought it was, really great. And she wasn't blowing smoke at my ass. She would have told me if it was horrible. And so I kind of left it at that. I just kind of put it away and said, that was for that reason. And here you go. And now I'm going to be able to move on to the stories that I truly want to get into it and really am wanting to get back to, my old stomping grounds of creativity. So
sorry about having you bring up that whole story.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's part of my life.
That was like the connection. I remember like the titles we were discussing. I was like, wasn't there one that I don't have that was called?
Yeah, but I did that one too. So technically I did 5. Yeah, so far.
Chuck forgetting books left and right. Yeah. Like they're just like falling out of your backpack.
Well, forgotten, I guess, because of humiliation and embarrassment.
I do the same thing with writing songs. Like I've told you the story about when I was living with a friend, and I was like playing guitar, and I was like, oh, here's a song I wrote. I go, I like it. I go, and I told him, I go, I really like this song. I go, but it sounds familiar to me. And I was like, I don't know where I heard it before and stuff. And the whole time my friend's looking at me like he's irritated at me. And I go, what? And he's like, are you being serious right now? And I go, yeah. I go, I mean, I just wrote this song recently, but it's like, it sounds familiar. Like, who did I steal it from? And he pulls out this tape I gave him several years before and puts on that exact song. And it's like, I had wrote it years before and gave him a tape, and then I forgot I wrote it, and then rewrote the same fucking song. And I don't know. It's like you just start. I forget shit that I fucking write, but I need to get it more organized and start. It's a big goal of mine here the next few months to finally put everything together. Like whatever, 20 years worth of shit.
I believe in you, man. I know you can do it, because it's one of the passion projects that's, you can't just forget about it. It's something that you will finish, and you will be satisfied, not just satisfied, but very pleased with. I know you will be. It just, everything comes with time. So everything in its time, I should say, right?
So I just had a friend of mine tell me about another friend that I'm not friends with anymore, but he had found old recordings of music I did. He recorded me 18 years ago, and he posted it on YouTube. And
Really?
Yeah, today. And I was
Without
like,
your consent? Really?
well, I guess the guy I'm still friends with told him, you should post this, because like this is like old stuff, and like I'm sure Rob will be fine with it, which I mean, I don't really care. I was initially irritated, but then when I was told the reasoning for it, it was like, okay, that's fine. But it got me thinking about all this stuff that I've had for all these years, and you get away from it, and then I don't know, whenever you feel like you're not yourself. Sounds like a Snickers commercial. Like, I'll forget that I do music. I'll forget that I have all these time and effort I put into projects, and then something will remind me of something, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do this. There's this whole part of me that's hasn't had a chance to really breathe, or kind of come out, and it's the most honest part of me. It's like the most naked part of me, and vulnerable part. But yeah, man, that's why I've always appreciated our conversation and us kind of like being supportive of each other, because I don't have a lot of people to talk to about it. And
it's been an absolute privilege, and I look forward to more years to come with that. I really enjoy talking to you about creativity and where we are at the time with our projects, and where do we think we're going with them, and pitching ideas to each other, and listening or reading each other's stuff. It's been really awesome.
Likewise, my friend. One quick question I can ask about the Legends of Evergreen. Why did you choose that name?
Good question. So when I was working at the movie theater, God, it always starts out with that, doesn't it?
Go back to
I remember there was
what's that? The mothership.
The mothership, yes. No, there was one night I remember working there one particular night. I don't know why. I think it was during the fall of, it was either 2000, 2001, one of those two. And I remember I was just kind of daydreaming at the doorpost. I was taking tickets, but then there was a lull in traffic. And so I just kind of sat there and thought to myself, gosh, what are people doing right now? And I remember thinking about the fact that it was a Friday night and that football games were going on at the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, you got schools doing football games, and people are having a good time at stadiums and rooting for their school and all that stuff. And, people really get into that stuff. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, so what are the schools that are in the area? And so I started thinking about, okay, well, there's Evergreen High School, there's Mountain View High School, there's Camas High School, there's Columbia River High School, all these high schools, and Fort Vancouver High School. And, I thought to myself, well, isn't it interesting that like we have grouped ourselves, at least when we were in high school, in these little factions and in this and in these little realms, and we go in and battle each other at these other high schools, like, as far as combative sports. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to like make a story about that? And what would that look like? What would this school look like if it were a kingdom versus that school, right? And instead of sports, it'd be war or conflict or something like that. And so what it ended up being was, I remember earlier I was telling you how when I was a kid, I thought of my neighborhood as being kind of like a kingdom. Well, all of a sudden, the entire city of Vancouver became a realm, and it became, the kingdom of Evergreen, and the kingdom of Cascadia, which is Mountain View, and the kingdom of Lacamas, which is high school, Camas High School. And it all just kind of formulated like that. And so that began that whole thing. And that's what started me writing the Legends of Evergreen.
Yeah, I remember you telling me some of that stuff before.
Yeah.
It's interesting to kind of incorporate like personal, like, geographical locations, and I've done kind of similar stuff before. That's pretty cool. One last question I have for you.
Okay.
What have you done that you feel like you're most proud of?
Out of everything in life, or just
Yeah, let's say everything in life.
most proud of the thing I'm most proud of.
If you were gotta mention one thing, like, let's say 97-year-old Charlie's on his deathbed and has dementia. You have like little flashes of memories, and you're like, there's one thing that I still remember that you're really proud of. Like, what?
From between birth to 40 years old, I would say the thing I'm most proud of was sticking it out and getting. I say this as a bad thing, but it wasn't. It really wasn't. It was just hard. But sticking through playing football in high school, because from the time I started school when I was in kindergarten all the way to freshman year, I didn't play any sports. I didn't do anything. When I was in middle school, I was a very angry kid. I was a very, very angry, upset, mad kid. I hated the world. I hated everything. I was starting to wear black every day. I was starting to wear camo like some of the kids were. I mean, it was getting pretty serious. It was getting kind of bad. This was before school shootings, but yeah, it was getting pretty awful with my mental state. Well, what happened was Camas High School started high school, their actual high school sophomore year. So I was pulled back in ninth grade to being in middle school like the rest of my class when the new middle school was built. And so that just made me even more upset. I just wanted to get to high school. But when I actually started my sophomore year at the actual high school at the time, they were revamping their football team. They hadn't won a game in 2 years. It was like 0-9 every goddamn year. And I thought, well, I need to start doing something different with my life. I need to start doing something different. I don't want to go to work yet because I'm gonna be working the rest of my life. What do I need to do to change myself? And it started with going into the weight room and meeting some people and starting to, lift weights. And then, I was asked, well, why don't you join the football team? I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I'll just see how it is for a couple of days. And so I went into it, and it was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, just because of, you had a lot of rotten people on the team, a lot of them hazing you, a lot of them belittling you every day, pushing you down in the mud, and saying you're not going to get up to anything in your life. You're just horrible. Fortunately, I had a really amazing head coach that just started that year as well, and kind of was my mentor and guided me through everything. And I dreaded going to practice every day. It was like getting pulled into a mob fight every goddamn day, and just being hit and pummeled and kicked and punched and everything. It was horrible. It was miserable. And it was like this dreaded thing every day that I thought about going into school every day. But I did it. And I did it because I knew I needed to grow out of this thing I was becoming in my head, just this angry, miserable person. And I got it all out there on the practice field and in games. And it got to the point where I built some camaraderie with people, and I learned how to communicate with people, and I learned how to become a man. I learned how to, suck it up and just get out there every day. And even though it was 30 degrees and raining, you get out there on the practice field and you do your practice anyway. You get ready for the game that's coming up on Friday. And it helped me grow up. I grew up, and it prepared me to be a better person for those that I would meet later on, like you, and to just, I don't know, just develop in an accelerated rate. And not only that, but to just have no regrets for my time having to be in high school. And I say that because I didn't want to be there. Nobody wants to be there, but it helped me to not only get through it, but to be proud of what I did and to say, you know what, I accomplished that. I went through 3 years of hell and brought a team that was 0-9 to winning half of their games by my senior year. And the accomplishments and the goals that I set for myself and made and met on the field, in weight room, and in my academic career there as well, helped me to gain a much better foothold in life once I graduated high school.
You were you halfback?
I was a fullback.
Fullback.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you were a big fan of All-Star, right?
Yeah, I wanted to be him when I was in high school. I watched him play in games, and I tried to mimic his moves on the field and just be a power runner when I had the ball, and as best I could. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you and I found out you were a Buccaneers fan. You were like, "Yeah, we should have gone to the Super Bowl. To, screw the Rams." And I was like, I was a Rams fan. I was like, and then who was it? I think right after I started it was like a month or a month and a half, 2 months. It was one of the worst Super Bowls ever. It was the Ravens and Giants.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, that's cool. I didn't realize that you got that much out of like playing, football. But there's all sorts of things that impact you and help mold you and help you develop. Well, like you've answered all the questions I've had. Do you have anything you wanted to bring up on your own, or?
Just one thing that's come to mind as we've talked, and that is something that I don't think I've said this to you yet, but I want to thank you for being the one that reached out. You when we were in that auditorium, I would glance over kind of here and there, just kind of seeing how you were doing, how you're holding up as far as cleaning and everything, and you're doing just fine. But you were the one that breached the silence and started our friendship, and I can't thank you enough for extending that olive branch. That was really cool.
Well, yeah, man, I appreciate you saying thank you. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you had such a huge impact on me back then as well. It's like you're one of my best friends that came out of that situation, and you've been a great friend. And like, I've enjoyed our conversations over the years, and it's crazy that it's been 21 years now. That's just like really, that's hard to believe, man. 21 years.
I'm absolutely thrilled, and frankly, I'm looking forward to the next 21. So yeah, bring it.
And like I think in a lot of situations I would reach out to people at jobs, but it was pretty rare that I reached out, and it was like, like and continuing to reach out. And like, I definitely, one of my best decisions I made there was, because I mean, I didn't think early on like me and you would be friends. I just thought like, well, here's a guy, he's a hard worker, seems like an honest dude, and and I think just having the simple thing in common of working hard and liking sports, and then it kind of went from there. And then and then later on I found out you were into writing, and then and then Garrick hanging out with us. I think the three of us hung out for a while.
Snowballed from there.
Yeah, then it got all weird. Oh my gosh, I still think about how yeah, Gabe, we still got to get together sometime soon.
By the way, I want to mention on this episode that I saw Gabe's interview with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really liked Gabe's stories as well, and I really hope that this podcast picks up some steam and takes off. I really think that there's an audience for it. If not anybody outside of Vancouver, at least the whole of Vancouver, because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to, where we've worked and the people we've interacted with.
Well, thanks. I agree. It's kind of like a test run. Like I'm trying to get about 6 of them under my belt, and then kind of like assess if it's something I want to start doing once a week. But I've told you before, like my reasoning for starting it was just I had several friends that brought it up to me, and I think it was about the 6th friend that brought it up to me, where I was like, okay, well maybe I got to take this seriously, like trying to start a podcast, based off of like the weird phone conversations I would have. And people being like, you should start a podcast because your conversations get so all over the place. And, but yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate the positive feedback, and, much love back at you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, man. Any last words while you're on here?
I just look forward to the next coffee with you.
Sounds good, my friend. We'll have to talk to Gabe and Scott and try to get something set up.
That sounds like a good time. Yeah, definitely. We'll go out for a drink or a movie or something, maybe both. Who knows?
Okay, man. Well, thanks again, my friend, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you soon.